That worst one interview that night, Carson thought about giving up. Johnny Carson was the undisputed king of late-night television for 30 years. Carson became known for his steady, professional manner, as he hosted more than 4,500 episodes and 22,000 guests. Carson, with the exception of one occasion, maintained his composure on television through embarrassing circumstances, bad gags, and unpleasant celebs. On an otherwise routine night in 1975, a renowned American writer made an appearance on The Tonight Show in a stunning state that not only derailed an interview, but almost destroyed Carson's illustrious career. "I've never seen Johnny that upset, before or after," said an ex-NBC executive who was there during the fallout of the interview that many still think was the worst in the show's history. He wasn't irate over a single poor segment. Ignoring everything, he was suspicious. Whether he wished to stay in television, his influence over the show, and the backing of the network. It was the point at which he almost left. Carson ordered all copies burned the night of literary hero Truman Capote's final Tonight Show appearance, which drove television's most unshakable host to his breaking point. Today, we're unveiling the complete unedited tale of that interview. But before we go into that, let's figure out what set this interview apart from all the others Carson had done with challenging guests, and why that 30-minute portion encapsulated Carson's worst fears about live television. I see. By the way, I believe you mentioned that you found the majority of actors and actresses to be ignorant. Is that essentially what you stated? Or am I taking a quote out of context? Sure. My point was that the mid-1970s was Truman Capote's last drunken outing. Truman Capote had already established himself as a prominent American writer by the summer of 1975. Cold Blood, his magnum opus, had shook up literary journalism. Despite the fact that films based on his works, such as Breakfast at Tiffany's, had become cinematic masterpieces, he became famous for his eccentric personality and unique voice. His humor and juicy rumors about Hollywood's elite were a constant source of entertainment for listeners of his talk shows. In his trademark high-pitched drawl, Capote would often offer literary criticism and charming anecdotes about his celebrity pals during his appearances on The Tonight Show. Carson usually relished their conversations, thinking Capote's blend of celebrity antics and cerebral depth was tailor-made for late-night TV. According to a producer who worked on numerous performances by Capote, Johnny had true admiration for Capote's writing. Truman, in his view, embodied a particular cultural elevation for the show. He was both amusing and a credible literary figure. Every one of their prior chats had been fruitful. However, the instant Capote arrived at the NBC studios on the night of the disastrous appearance, alarm bells began to ring. The writer, who had been fighting serious alcohol and drug addiction issues, looked severely impaired. He slurred his speech, wobbled unsteadily, and exhibited unpredictable conduct that worried the production crew. He could barely walk to the green room, recalled a production assistant who had been there that night. His handler, I think it was his lawyer, was basically holding him upright. At that moment, our talent coordinator spoke with the executive producer and firmly stated, "We can't put him on air like this." Unfortunately, no one wanted to break the news to Johnny that their part with Truman Capote had to be canceled at the last minute. Carson, known for his penchant for keeping guests apart before shows in order to preserve spontaneity, was given merely a general remark that Capote appeared little fatigued. The host's horror at Capote's state was evident as the interview commenced. When Capote unexpectedly showed up on set, Johnny's eyes widened in shock because he recognized a cameraman who had been working that night. His calculations were visible to you in real time. Should I try to save this or just terminate it? A large portion of the country was watching this live. No simple solution existed. After that, there was 30 minutes of more painful TV. Capote babbled on and on about a wide range of subjects, scarcely able to construct meaningful sentences. When Carson tried to shift the topic to Capote's writings, the author would start answering, but then his answers would become incoherent gibberish. On other occasions, he seemed to completely lose track of his whereabouts. According to a writer who was present backstage during the interview, Carson was making every effort to have the segment flow together. He was frantically searching for questions that Capote could answer simply, completing Truman's sentences and correcting when he went off into unacceptable ground. It appeared as if a skilled juggler were attempting to maintain control of a falling plate. Capote crossed a line when he named identities and described potentially lilist circumstances involving the personal lives of other famous people. Capote was adamant about getting back to the gossip, even though Carson tried to change the subject after realizing the legal threat. It all came to light when Johnny went to commercial, revealing a stage manager standing off camera. That grin of Carson's disappeared the second the red light turned off. He then yelled to his producer, "Get him out of here now." The suggestion was not made. That was a directive. I had never heard him speak in such a manner before. In a departure from his usual interview style, Carson stepped away from the stage during the commercial break. Witnesses said he bolted for his office and slammed the door. After the commercial break, host Ed McMahon said that Capote was sick and that the program will continue with the following part. Following the segment, Johnny was enraged. His co-workers said he had asked, "Why do I even do this show anymore?" It was recalled by an ex-writer. It wasn't just performative anger. He felt ashamed to admit while feeling embarrassed. This wasn't merely poor television. When things went wrong, it was a sobering reminder of how powerless he was. He stated, "If this is what it's going to be, maybe I'm done." Even while Carson's frustration with the botched segment was obvious, nobody noticed how severely it had damaged his faith in The Tonight Show's structure during that time. Carson, in an unusually vulnerable moment, told his closest associates that the Capote interview had shown the program's basic shortcomings. Johnny informed a few of us afterwards that the incident caused him to doubt our guest screening procedures in general, an experienced producer explained. He pointed out, "If we can't prevent something like this, what's the point of all our preparation?" He was really thinking about whether he wanted to keep doing a show where he may be publicly shamed at any moment. Carson's discontent extended beyond that particular instance and encompassed his larger grievances with NBC. The next day, he allegedly got into an angry confrontation with network officials, demanding more say in guest selection and pre-screening and threatening to quit if his demands weren't met. An executive from NBC who was there recalls how stressful the meeting was. It was unusual for Johnny to issue ultimatums or threats. That wasn't necessary. His position was so powerful that the slightest indication that he may withdraw caused widespread alarm. There was an immediate and firm promise from the network president that the Capote incident would never happen again. There were both short-term and long-term effects of the interview. In the event that a comparable circumstance were to occur in the future, NBC agreed to enhance the pre-in process and granted Carson's team more power to cancel guest appearances. The only reason segments would no longer go forward is to prevent scheduling conflicts at the last minute. Even more importantly for Capote, the incident severed ties between The Tonight Show and him. Capote was discreetly removed from the list of possible invitees, though he was never formally barred, like other troublesome visitors were. Carson took Capote's appearance more seriously, viewing it as a violation of the fundamental professional decorum he anticipated from guests, something he seldom took personally when it came to minor slip-ups or poor performances. According to a talent coordinator from that time, Johnny could tell the difference between guests who were really anxious or unprepared and those who displayed a lack of respect for the show. Entering the arena in such a state was more than just unprofessional. Carson took Capote's actions as an admission that his show wasn't significant enough to warrant his sobriety. Johnny would never be able to forgive that. The fact that Carson made an extraordinary request about the broadcast is indicative of how profoundly the episode affected him. When home taping wasn't as common, networks relied on their own archives to keep their broadcasts alive. The Capote segment was reportedly removed from all tape recordings at Carson's request and will never be featured in retrospectives or clip programs, according to various sources. An ex-NBC archivist revealed that Johnny preferred that no record of that evening exist. Even while most episodes of The Tonight Show were preserved, that particular portion was essentially wiped off the record. Such an application of Johnny's power was unusual. While he normally reveled in sharing blunders and embarrassing events, the Capote interview struck a more profound chord. He thought it was a terrible reflection on the show and Capote in particular, so he didn't want it kept. In private talks with personnel, Carson would sometimes bring up the Capote event years later as an example of an inappropriate guest appearance. The concern, "Are we looking at another Capote situation?" was enough to make bookers hesitate when he encountered exceptionally challenging celebrities who were offered for the show. The story's resonance stems from the fact that it depicted the meeting of two accomplished professionals at opposite stages of their development. During this time, Carson was unrivaled as the ruler of late-night television and had a profound impact on American popular culture. The lengthy, tragic fall that would characterize Capote's last years, on the other hand, was only beginning. In the same year that his social circle was alienated by the publishing of novella portions from his unfinished work Answered Prayers, Capote's decline quickened. According to a literary critic who followed Capote's career, That Tonight Show appearance marked the start of Capote's decline in the mainstream. Prior to that, his struggles with substance abuse were acknowledged, but were viewed as a quirky aspect of his personality. The public's perception of Carson shifted thereafter. More than that, he was vibrant. He was disturbed, unprofessional, and may have hurt someone if he appeared on live TV. As a result of the situation, Carson took some time to think, which helped him refine his approach to the show. After giving it some thought, Johnny decided to stay and bargain for more say over the Tonight Show's guest lineup and airtime. Although it seemed like the Capote episode would ruin Carson's career at the time, paradoxically, it gave him the power to set the stage for circumstances that would allow him to continue ruling for another 15 years. Finally, in a cruel twist of fate, reports continue to circulate that one private recording of the interview survived, even though Carson had ordered all official copies to be destroyed. Some former NBC employees have mentioned seeing the footage, saying it was much more disturbing than current accounts make it out to be. Carson was so intent on erasing the one night when the most collected host on television almost gave up, that no authentic copy has ever been made public. During his 30 years as America's late-night companion, Johnny Carson was a fiercely protective professional whose cool facade concealed serious worries about control, quality, and reputation. The nearly disastrous Capote interview exposes a side of Carson that the public seldom saw. The laid-back exterior belied a perfectionist who knew he had to make tough choices in order to keep to his standards if he wanted to succeed. This narrative sheds light on the specific demands of Carson's position, which is what makes it so important. Carson appeared in front of a live audience for most of the nation, unlike most TV hosts who could simply cut out troublesome bits or apologize for odd blunders. This exposed a weakness that not even his vast expertise could fully address. This underlying fear of his chosen medium, that a single catastrophic segment could derail years of painstaking work, had to be confronted by him after the Capote event. The strategic thinking that allowed Carson to remain in his position for so long is on display in his reaction to this crisis, in which he almost gave up before he used it to gain more control. He didn't just shrug it off. He turned his professional moment of weakness into an opportunity to increase his position with the network. Much of Carson's financial acumen, hidden beneath his charming on-air persona, was characterized by this capacity to turn calamity into opportunity. Importantly, Carson was adamant about erasing any trace of the interview. For a man who usually shrugged off the odd on-air gaffe, this was a strange move. It appears that the Capote incident affected more than just professional pride, based on this remarkable reaction. It was a danger to the rapport Carson had worked so hard to build with his viewers. The unspoken guarantee that, although The Tonight Show may shock you from time to time, it will never intentionally put you in an awkward situation in the comfort of your own home. Looking back on that fateful night in 1975 sheds light on Johnny Carson in a way that no other story can. Even though he was contemplating quitting the most sought-after job in television, the calm, unflappable host had a man's awareness of how fast it could all fall apart, driving him to never let it happen again. The fact that the majority of viewers were unaware of how near they were to losing Carson too soon is a true reflection of his expertise. The situation was kept under wraps. The video was completely wiped out, and the following night Carson was back behind his desk, seemingly without a care in the world. The consummate professional whose greatest ability may have been making the exceedingly difficult job of hosting The Tonight Show look effortless. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and press the bell icon. Thanks for watching.